shows up and he's like, oh, Keira Knightley's over there shooting the bow. I should go over and like show her how it's done. Like, just kind of being silly and over the top with it. And he goes over and the stunt coordinator hands him like this big composite bow. And he just said he's just sitting there struggling and he can't even pull the bow back because it's so hard. And here she is right next to him, just like hitting bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. And then Hugh Dancy is sitting next to him and he goes, yeah, you couldn't shoot the bow. That's why they just gave you 2 swords. So it's like they're all making fun of each other and having fun with it.
Yeah, Fuqua said that all the stunt coordinators were amazed by Knightley. They said that she's just a straight up natural. And watching this again, dude, I like her. And I love that she charged into battle. She was really proud of that fact too. I kind of liked her fighting style. It was sort of like all the other woads, kind of feral, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, she mentions that she enjoyed playing with the sword. She's got a hatchet. She was the only real cast member that got to shoot a flaming arrow. So she thought that was great. And then she even got to choke somebody, which she said she liked the most.
That's funny. And then you had Tristan, who's your boy, Mads Mikkelsen. Tristan is great with arrows. He's great with falconry. He's great with tracking people. He's great with swords. He's a very good horse rider. He's a good scout.
He's got like the Eastern, almost like samurai sword.
Yeah, I was, for lack of like a kind of like a Persian-esque sword, would you say?
Yes.
Like
yes.
an Asian kind of sword.
Yep.
Dude, his fight with Stellan is so cool.
It is great. It is. I think it's one of the better sword classes and probably in Sword and Shield, movie wise.
While watching this movie, nowadays, you're like, Mads Mikkelsen is fighting Stellan Skarsgård in a sword fight. It's just, if you tell listen, why should I watch Arthur? Mads Mikkelsen and Stellan Skarsgård, like, throw down. It's fun. Like Sweden's biggest star versus Denmark's biggest star.
Yeah,
I love that.
And I think I have no data to back this up, but I'm willing to bet that their sword fight probably runs the longest on camera over anybody else's as well.
Yeah, Fuqua said that they got so into it that they did every different angle that they shot. They did the entire fight all the way through. Which he's like, they're both amazing actors. And you know what else I love? Fuqua's like, listen. The sky was changing. It was raining. We had a lot of stuff to do. We had a lot of shots. He's like, so when I hired everybody, I didn't want them going off to their trailers to go get coffee or go do this or disappear or get on their phones or go get home. He's like, if you were on set, you were on set. And I guess all the guys just hung around and worked out and did sword play, and Keira Knightley did that as well. I guess they just hung around and got awesome with weapons.
I think it shows too. Another interesting thing, like especially with the behind the scenes stuff, is that the horses play such a huge part in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Like if you ever watch, and they were really afraid of this, is like they get into like a big action scene and they ride off on a horse, and then all of a sudden the camera becomes static, and there they are, just like a few people talking on a horse. But every time a horse is shown, like it's literally taking over the scene because it is always moving.
Yep.
And so that was a thing that really frustrated Clive Owen and Gruffa to begin with, because it felt like they were trying to act over a horse. Like they could not get the horse to do what they wanted. But Fuqua said like that is completely natural. Like these animals, you can only control them to an extent. Just flow with it. Let it go.
Yeah. He kind of said, get over yourselves. Right?
Yeah. And they were like, once we started thinking of it in this term, we just let it happen naturally. And so like a lot of the shots you see with these guys on horses, it's almost like a steady cam, so the camera can be fluid and move around them as the horse moves and bucks and sways.
And I think you know what I think really helped the DP, director of photography, cinematographer, Sławomir Idziak, is he had done Black Hawk Down before this with Ridley Scott. And
one of my favorites.
Ridley Scott, you know about his productions, man. I mean, he churns out a movie a year, and he moves so fast, Ridley does, that when you watch Black Hawk Down, it's not a static camera. I mean, that camera is moving. It's in the action. So I think what he brought from Black Hawk Down really helped Arthur in regards to its action scenes, because there really is a sense of place in this. And there is, I like what Fuqua said about the final battle. All the camera angles, you're looking up at Merlin. You're looking up at the heroes. The way they framed everything was hero shots. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. And I like these battles because, like, the first battle, The one on the ice, you do get a firm sense of kind of place, I would say, with them. So I think those were handled well than a lot of other battle scenes. If I don't know if you agree.
I was going to say, I think just the battle scenes in general, for me, I never got lost. Like a lot of times when you get into these big,
like in Troy,
chaotic, cinematic battles, leave Troy out of this. Sometimes you're following the individual characters, but you don't know where they are in the scheme of the actual battle.
Yeah.
Are they in the middle? What line are they on? Where are they at? Where are the other characters at? And I always felt like with this movie, especially with the Battle of Baden Hill, you know where everybody is at all times. And everyone's in sight with each other. And so you'll always see these, I wouldn't call them real subtle overs, but you'll get POVs from one character to the other. And I think that's what I love about it is I don't get lost. And Fuqua will occasionally back the camera up and you'll get almost like a reestablishing shot of what's progressing in the battlefield. You'll see all these smokestacks with the Saxon Army, flanking around one direction or vice versa. And then all of a sudden you're back into it. And you're like, oh, hey, that's the fire line they started. I understand where I'm at and I'm not getting lost.
And also, normally I hate... So the biggest thing I dislike, I'm just going to use this term in general, even though it's not medieval. I'm just going to use a broad sweeping term. That could go to Troy, even though it's not medieval. You know what I mean? I don't like medieval movies sometimes because I hate extras that are dressed as peasants. I think they're always terrible. And a lot of times in the battle scenes, which is very tough. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of extras. So making sword fighters 100 yards in the distance keep up the realism during the shots is tough. But in this movie, I never got annoyed by any of the extras in the background sword fighting. So I think that's a testament to the ADs and the fight choreographers who handled this. It felt, I don't know, do you know what I mean? Sometimes in movies, you're like, those two guys aren't even swinging at each other. You know what I mean? Or they're just pushing each other with each other's shields.
I love what you're saying there because especially being an assistant director these days, it's really hard for me to watch a movie or a TV show and not pay attention to the background. That is going to be one of the fastest things that ever takes me out of a show or a movie. If you've just got some stupid cross that's swiping by the camera,
or
someone's
walking,
doing something dumb
extra walking
in the background.
Yeah.
And so, but this movie, and even just rewatching it a couple days ago, I never got the sense that these were extras. It felt like one fluid, barbaric army to me. And I think that plays a huge role to the crew. I mean, not only did they train these extras up and give props to all these extras, as in congratulate them for doing a great job and actually paying attention, getting the marching orders down, figuring out what they needed to do to make this realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think they did an awesome job with it. And I mean, they were handling 600-700 people all in costume.
I've said this before. I love that movie Annihilation, directed by Alex Garland. But there's a scene in the beginning where Natalie Portman is teaching, and in the background there's extras doing crosses. And it's like, they're not moving their arms. And you just know it's the extra walk. And I always hate sometimes when everything is ridiculously busy in the background. So you're in an office, and there's 40 people delivering files.
Being on the working end of that, it drives me crazy. when we're doing an office scene or something, simple and subtle and should be quiet, or working at a hospital at 2 a.m. in the morning, and this scene takes place at 2 a.m., but yet it looks like it's a massacre mad rush of people in the ER.
Everyone's delivering files. Why? I've had so many people deliver files. Hey, put this in your hands and deliver files. Just go back and forth, deliver. Oh, man. Yeah, but this one I didn't feel it. And that really is a credit to everyone involved, because it's tough to whip up into shape in very little, because this movie had a really quick turnaround. This had about a year to write, shoot, edit, and then get released. I mean, they did not have much time for this. So to whip into shape a Saxon army, I mean, I'd hire the guy who did it. That's for sure.
I wish I could remember the name, but Fuqua even mentioned that in both the behind the scenes videos that I watched. He pulled this guy aside and he was like, I don't want these extras to feel like extras. Yeah. We've got 2 hours to get this down. And so he marches off with his 600 people. And Fuqua said within a half hour, he hears these guys speaking Anglo-Saxon like war chants and marching to a drum, like off, a few hundred yards away from where the cast is rehearsing. And he said it was just awesome. Like before you knew it, these guys just march in and they're just kicking ass.
They ate as a group, then they marched out as a group. Like that's fun, man.
And
like that's when
they all died by King Arthur.
That's when you know that you got somebody good on staff. You got them to believe in it. And I think you got the right extras. I wonder if they were casting. Because, is casting different in Ireland than it is Atlanta? Because imagine if we got 400 people to play a Saxon Army. Would you be able, maybe they're just better extras out there. I don't know. You know what I mean? That'd be a tough gig.
Well, I can't imagine too many big budget Hollywood movies shooting in Ireland in 2004. We'd have to make a list. So you might be getting the cream of the crop and the best of the best that are coming in to work on King Arthur.
That just want to
Whereas here, we're spread out over 30 productions and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel at times.
Hey, so also another thing, Dan Wheel, the production designer, he worked on The Professional, Born Identity, and Blood Diamond. And when you think about those three movies, I think there's a nice level of realism involved. I mean, think about The Professional in your head right now. It's very grounded. It's very, it's very believable. Then think about Born Identity, how grounded again that is. I mean, Born Identity is such a realistic action film. And then Blood Diamond, which I think, people love Leo's accent in that. I think that's another really good looking one. So I think that's I think this guy captured the time. I mean, he had $90 million to do it, and he had Disney and he had Jerry Bruckheimer. Correct. So yeah, I mean, obviously he had everything at his disposal, but I think nothing I don't think was taken for granted as far as production design in this film, I would say.
Well, no. And I think a lot of that too is on top of the production design is kind of the story as well. And again, like you can go back to the King Arthur stuff, but it was written by David Frazzoni, who also did Gladiator.
Yeah, crazy.
Which just came out a few years before this did.
Yeah, he was hot.
And so then they also had the costume designer. The costume designer from Gladiator also did the costumes on this movie.
And she also did Pirates. Bruckheimer brought her in.
So that was a big thing that they really drove home together, that they didn't want this to be, the knight in shining armor type of movie. Everyone's crystal clear. They look great all the time. Like this was these guys were supposed to be dirty and gritty, like salt of the earth type of warriors.
And I want to ask you something. So it did $50 million here in the States, $90 million. Overall, it did $200 million worldwide. So let's say let's add $30 million for advertising. You're at $120 million. It still pulled in a profit for Disney, which is good. But I think $50 million for a British King Arthur tale with no big stars in it in 2004 wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And I think part of that too is the PG-13 rating. And I think the fact that it wasn't dealing with, sorcery and magic and that type of thing may have hurt it to an extent.
Yeah. And do you think they were, like Troy had already come out? They already had do you think it was kind of fatigued at the moment? Because Troy was not good.
I think it got okay. You're gonna have to cut that out. No, I think it got a bad rap, especially during the test screenings where they had to change the ending of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of historians out there got really upset that this was claiming to be a true story from the card at the beginning of the titles, saying based off new archaeological evidence. We now know, the original story of King Arthur, which is completely false. But it's like I think a lot of historians really ragged on this movie hard, and it got a bad word of mouth because of that. But I also think like what a lot of people don't consider is, one, this is a more realistic take, but two, all the characters that are in this movie outside of Arthur's knights are based off of real people, not necessarily all in the 5th century, give or take 300 years on either side of that. But they've kind of composited everything into definitely a historical fictional realm, but they've also kept it very grounded with how these events would have happened back then.
Well, Arturius did defeat the Saxons, correct? After the Romans pulled out. That's fact.
Supposedly, yes.